You're watching part one of my next trailer barbecue build, so this is going to be pretty interesting. I've built a number of barbecues over the years. I don't think I've built anything this big, and I definitely want this barbecue to be the best one that I've ever put together, so I figured I might as well just get this back into the garage. We're going to be basing this off of a 250-gallon propane tank and a essentially store-bought utility trailer, because I've learned in the past you don't really save anything when you put those together yourself, and so I just went out and bought one, and here what I'm in the process of is cutting out all the various fittings and vents and all that stuff. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm just taking some scraps of 1/8" diamond tread that I happen to have laying around the shop, and I'm just welding these to the top of the tank with some self-shielded flux core wire. Now, I'm essentially just burning through the paint on this because, well, I mean, I don't want to sound like a hack, but there's really not too much reason to get this sparkly clean because there's only one pretty thin coat of paint on this tank. It's not galvanized. That's very faded gray paint. I posted a picture of this on my Facebook page, and some people were like, "You should make a barbecue out of a galvanized tank." Well, it's not galvanized. And yeah, so there's just one thin coat of paint on there. It's already torn up in a bunch of places. I mean, it's not held on by a lot, and we're using processes for this that tolerate paint and other debris very, very well. And I mean, it's a barbecue. It's not like we're putting together some kind of high pressure pipeline that's gonna hold 1,000 PSI or whatever. So it should be fine. And I got this welded on, and now what I'm in the process of is I'm cutting our tank almost in half. Normally what you want to do in most cases is come up with a firebox that's approximately 1/3 the size of your cooking chamber, but I went a little bit larger than that. I believe this firebox is 40 or 45% as large as the cooking chamber itself, and the reason for that is because this isn't the only cooking chamber that we're going to have on this barbecue. I'm going to make a vertical cabinet and put it on the front of this cooking chamber, and therefore, since we're going to have more space, I obviously need a larger firebox to keep things nice and warm. So once I got the tank separated into its two almost halves, what I started working on is cutting out some 3/16 plate because I'm using the same thickness material on the ends as I used, well, as whoever used when they built that propane tank. It's almost exactly 3/16 of an inch thick. And I'm just getting these circles cut out here. Essentially, I just drew out about a 30-inch circle, and this material being as thin as it is, I can more or less cut this as fast as I can guide the torch, and so I'm just kind of working my way around here. I want this to come out nice and round, and I'm just taking my time. You know, I'm really trying to do my best on this build, and yeah, we'll get that knocked out of there. And then I'll just cut off the last little bit of the skeleton so it's not getting in the way or anything. I'll just set that aside. And here what I'm using are some 1/8" Lincoln Excalibur 70/18s. And I'm basically just taking my time and working my way around this this joint. And as you can see, I've got this position so it's really easy to roll the tank, so that way I don't have to do any kind of crazy out of position stuff. I could just, you know, just get this welded up, and it should be good. So this is going to be an interesting build. Like I said, I don't think I've ever made a barbecue quite like this before. Well, I know I haven't. I don't think I've made anything quite this nice, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out. So let's keep moving. Alright YouTube, so we're having a look at what's going to become the firebox on this build, and as you know, the last thing I did last night was I welded on this first end cap, obviously on that end, which leaves that end open. However, I don't want to weld a cap on here because since this is held flammable materials, there's still a chance it could theoretically build up pressure and explode. Therefore, what I need to do is create another opening on the side before I seal this end off. And the design for this firebox, and on the side, there's going to be a main door, which is where, of course, you'll open it up and you can throw more firewood or charcoal or whatever in there. And that is what we're going to be working on next. So essentially, what I need to do is just cut out a rectangular section about here. Actually, we'll probably put it on the other side so it faces this side of the trailer. And that way we'll have our door, and then obviously there won't be any way for pressure to build inside this thing when I weld on the ends here. So with that being said, I went ahead and fired up the lathe. I ended up making another set of hinges for this. I already made a couple sets in a video that I put together a little while back, but I needed more hinges than the ones I made in that video. And I gotta tell you guys, I got the belt on this lathe tightened up real nice, and the lathe sucks a lot less with the belt tightened up, so it's actually transferring a lot of the power that comes out of that motor. It actually has a fairly beefy little motor on there. I think it's like 1 or 1.5 horsepower, and that's actually making it to the spindle and to the piece that's being turned. So now I can actually take off a real amount of material here, which I think is kind of cool. And essentially what I'm doing is I just got some round bar stock on my awesome quote-unquote new, it's new to me, 3-job vise, and I'm just turning this down so I can put together some, I think they're technically called barrel style hinges. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with the lathe as I'm learning. And yeah, so once I got this set up, I just made the top cut on this door, because one thing I learned is you don't want to cut a door out of something like this and then align it and everything and weld hinges on. What you want to do, at least what I like to do, is just make the first cut and then you weld the hinges in place and then you cut out the other 3 sides. You can see I already got them drawn out with my paint marker here, and I just have to cut them. And that way, when you get the door freed, it's you know, it's ready to go, and you don't have to align anything. It's perfectly aligned. It's just obviously exactly how it was before you even got around to cutting it out. And that's something that can save you a lot of time and a lot of headaches, because obviously aligning something like that perfectly isn't the easiest or the most fun thing in the world to do. So once I got through with that, I just made this handle out of some 1/2-inch round stock, one of these springy doohickeys, and so that way heat should dissipate and the handle shouldn't get too hot, and our door works as advertised. Alright, YouTube, so I'm in the process of welding this end over the back of our firebox. It isn't going to join the main cooking chamber itself, and unfortunately it would appear as though we've got a little bit of a gap here just between the firebox and the end. Set it up just a little bit, and we're sealing up that gap, no issues whatsoever. And yeah, once we got that little gap all nice and stitched up, then I just switched it back over to its stick welding mode, started putting down some more beads with the old 7018 here, and we're just getting this piece of material welded on. I mean, I guess these welds don't really have to hold a lot of weight or anything, but I still want them to look nice. Alright YouTube, so I just got the second end of this firebox welded in place, and that brings us to our next dilemma, which is how we're going to get air into the firebox itself. And over the years and over all the barbecues I've made, I've used a number of different designs of ways to do this, and to be honest, I've never been entirely pleased with one, but we're going to be trying something new that I think I'm going to be pretty pleased with. So we got our door here, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut out a section about like that, and then we're going to put it on rails, and we're going to give it a latch so that you just, you know, slide the section open and lower it as needed depending upon how much air you want going into the firebox. And then I guess we might as well try this out. So we got that piece of flat stock we just drilled a whole bunch of holes through, attached to the grate, that guillotine type deal. And I'm having some technical difficulties here with my dang helmet flopping down. And then you just use that pin. Well, I can't, because I can't really see what I'm doing right now. But when you can't see what you're doing, you just run the pin through the piece of square stock, and the weight keeps it in place. Alright, so I guess this first segment of the video is just about done, because, well, I think this firebox is just about done. So what I've been working on recently was coming up with these 14-inch by 2-foot squares. We got 2 of them laying in here side by side, of course. And I just made these out of some of that 1-inch angle that we have and covered it with some of that expanded metal. And those are obviously the grates where your charcoal or your wood or whatever you want to cook with are going to rest. And I feel like we got everything positioned really well. As you can see, the top of the air inlet is right at the bottom of these grates, which is good because obviously if we have air coming in like up here, it's not really going to do a lot. We want it to come in under the fire so it burns as efficiently as possible. And then goes out the opening that we have yet to cut there. And now we're just in the process of assembling the vertical cabinet, which is hopefully going to end up fitting pretty perfectly on the front of this trailer. So here I'm just getting things tacked together. I've got this machine set to its MIG mode, of course, because we're going to be doing a lot of smaller tack welds here. You know, I don't want to have anything that's going to have slag that I have to chip before I weld over it. I pretty much just want to put down some quick little tack welds and then just weld them out once I get things in position. Alright, now I also managed to stab myself with the corner of the trailer, unfortunately, so this is just a quick little modification. I don't know why they don't do this at the factory, but it's a factory-built, mass-produced trailer, and it takes time, and I guess that's probably why they don't do it. So I just hacked those two corners off with the plasma cutter. Now I'm just gonna smooth things out a little bit with my grinder, and then just like that, I will hopefully not be able to impale myself anymore. YouTube, so we're having some technical difficulties right now. To make a long story short, I guess it's not that long in the first place. I was just welding away, minding my own business, and then all of a sudden, power went out. So, yeah, that's where we are right now. I don't even know what to say, to be honest. And I guess we might as well call the electric company because we still don't have power. I gotta be honest, this is probably one of the easiest opening doors I've ever put together. It weighs a lot, but you've got so much leverage on it, it's really not bad at all. This is not a design I've ever used before. We're trying out a lot of things for the first time on this barbecue build, and I gotta tell you, I am definitely pretty pleased. I can live with that, that's not bad at all. So I've done a few things since the last video update, and two of the most major ones are I made these cooking grates. As you can see in this front charcoal grill portion, we've got these two grates, an upper one and a lower one, and underneath here we have charcoal grates as well. So yeah, we got that out of the way. I also put in these slides for the side of our charcoal grill. As you can see, this is basically the same material we used to put the air vent on the firebox. There's just a piece of material in there. Slides back and forth as such. With the help of this nice chain, which will hopefully stay pretty cool. I think it will because, if you look at these chain links, only a very small part of the link comes in contact with the next one. Therefore, it's not going to be very efficient at transferring heat. And also, it is going to be a little ways away from the fire, and heat rises, and this is going down. So hopefully that won't be a problem. When I fire this up and test it out, I'm going to feel these chain links, and if it's the kind of thing that can burn someone, I guess I'll just have to go buy a couple more of those spring handle things and stick them off to the side. But that's not really a big deal, and honestly, I want to have these chain things on here anyway, because somehow if this piece of 1/8 inch sheet metal wanders out of here and goes flying on the highway, that'd be really bad. But I think it'll be fine. So yeah, we got that one over here, and we got this one over there. Pretty much the same exact deal. And I think I finally figured out how much slop is the ideal amount of slop to have in something like this. So it can move easily, but it's not like flopping around and rattling. And in here, I put in two more grates. We've got an upper grate and a lower grate here. Hopefully you can fit all kinds of nice, juicy, tasty dead animal in here. So yeah, we got that going on, and let's see what's next. it is cooking in here. This is probably about 4 times hotter than you grill most things. And with that being said, this is still, not only is it room temperature, it is cool to the touch. The handle, this part of the handle is pretty warm. It's about as warm as I can, feel it and not injure myself. And up here, since heat rises, also totally cool to the touch. And that's actually cooler for some reason. But yeah, as you can see, I've got this thing just way overloaded. I mean, you can see the top of our charcoal actually comes up past where the first food grate is. I used combined about 60 pounds of charcoal to get this thing all heated up and burned in and everything, because there's definitely a safety factor to consider when you build something like this. This is how I decided I was gonna set up the air vents for the doohickey here for the side of the grill. And I think earlier I was just going to use the chain, but I realized that was a little hokey and it might get hot. However, this is physically cool to the touch. This is cooler than the air out here. However, I just picked up some of these spring handles and made that. Really thrilled with that. And the air vents. All right, so, oh boy, it's actually kind of painful to stand here, so I'm going to try and make this quick. The way I work these is we got those top baffles, and it's supposed to be a heat shedding design, whereas this main tube here is all hollow. I think that's like 1-inch Dom tubing, and as you can see, it's hollow at the top, so heat doesn't get stuck in there. It goes out the top. And then coming up off of that, I got another one of those spring handles. So hopefully, even though I'm estimating the inside of that grill is about 1,000 degrees right now, yeah, I can operate this really fine. Actually, it doesn't hurt to hold, but it does kind of hurt to hold because the entire underside of my hand, I can feel it baking right there. And I'm actually just gonna open this, and this should also be pretty face melting. I wouldn't call this room temperature. I'd call this a tiny, tiny, tiny bit above. And no, I'm not gonna touch that rod thing that runs through it. My hand's already starting to burn. Okay, here we go. Woo! All right. That's hot. That's really hot, YouTube. Starting to get pretty warm. Oh yeah, this thing, it's operable, but that one's pretty hot, I gotta be honest. But again, as I'm holding it, I feel the outside of my knuckles burning. This one's cool to the touch. That one's a little warm to the touch, but I think that's just because of all the heat radiating outside of the firebox there. Man versus paint. I bought you paint and I can destroy you. Yeah, I don't want this crap to re-solidify. Ain't nobody got time for that. This is probably taking years off my life expectancy. Good enough. So once this cooker finally cooled down to close to ambient temperature, I took a wire wheel on my angle grinder and I knocked off the remains of that loose paint, and I gave it 1 coat of the high temperature barbecue paint. Looking at it though, I think it really needs a 2nd coat, so that's something I should probably do before I find a way to get this thing off and into its next big adventure in life. But it was a really fun build. I gotta tell you guys, I honestly think this is without a doubt the best barbecue that I've ever built. I mean, it's I've built a number of them, and I'm really, really, really thrilled with how this came out. It's a lot of fun to put together, and yeah, I did something I don't usually do, but oh yeah, here's the other thing. I've got that other grill I made like a couple years ago back when I lived in Ohio in the background here, and you can see just the difference between that and this. I feel like this is infinitely better, and it got built a lot faster. Start to finish on this project was about 6 weeks. However, I was out of town. I was traveling across the country for a little over 3 of those 6 weeks, so I basically built this in about 3 weeks. If I had to do another one, especially with a piece of equipment that I just acquired, I could probably knock it out in a week and a half to 2 weeks now that I have the bugs of the system worked out. But I gotta be honest, I can't really complain with how things went in this build. When I build something like this, is I come up with a general design, which in this case is a propane tank based barbecue grill on top of a trailer, and I just kind of build it from there, and whatever comes up along the way, I just kind of deal with it, and I make things work. And I feel like this came out really well. In fact, honestly, if I was going to design another one, I'd be more likely to put a front grill on it as opposed to a vertical cabinet, because now I can market this thing as something that not only smokes but also grills. But to everyone else who watched, thanks for watching. Have fun, stay safe.